Starting us off at number 10 is Fire Mountain. In the mid-90s, Fire Mountain was an unbuilt roller coaster that park officials were considering adding to the Adventureland area of the Magic Kingdom. The ride was based on the film Atlantis: The Lost Empire and would have taken park goers to an active volcano located between Splash Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean. The story of the ride was set in 1916. Preston Whitmore is trying to make Atlantis' existence public and starts offering expeditions to visitors. The vehicles they're in are forced to unexpectedly take a detour through the volcano.
But the whole plan was cancelled due to the film doing shockingly bad and underperforming at the box office. The ride was originally designed to be built to compete with Universal Studios' Islands of Adventure, but after visiting it and basically realizing that it was a mess and no threat to Walt Disney World, they decided to just cancel the whole construction of this ride.
Before we visited them, they're like, this ain't
They're like, oh, this is our competition?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Coming in at number 9 is Yellow Submarine. Now this one may seem familiar since a little known band called the Beatles made a song of the same name as well as a movie. The original animation came out back in 1968 and the plot centers around a music-loving underwater place called Pepperland. It's home to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and the whole town comes under attack from the music-hating Blue Meanies. Thus the protagonist goes on an adventure to enlist the help of the 4 members and bring them back to Pepperland. That was a very general summary of the film. I just wanted you guys to know what happened in it because I sure as did not know. So Disney wanted to create a remake of the movie, but there was a slight problem. The original was super trippy to the point it actually really terrified kids, and the concept art for the remake would have had the same effect. Robert Zemeckis was one of the creators of the remake, but since the movie Mars Needs Moms tanked, which he also created, he was given no artistic freedom after that. Now the effects of the movie were going to use stop motion technology like the Polar Express for example, but the whole project just got shelved for being too dark.
Making our way down the list at number 8, we have the Muppets. Due to the incredible success of MGM Studios' Muppet Vision 3D ride, Disney began working with Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, to include more Muppet themed stuff around the park. They had plans to create a restaurant and ride similar to the Great Movie Ride, but it would star the Muppets. One of the things they had planned was a pizza parlor featuring Rizzo the Rat and Gonzo, but sadly Jim Henson died shortly after and the plans to have a Muppet takeover were cancelled. Imagine if the plans did go through though, there would be a Kermit the Frog themed everything. They need to have a Kermit's tea shop though and have the logo as the, the Kermit sipping the tea meme. That would have been great.
Well, that's none of my business.
Coming in at number 7, there's a labyrinth of secret tunnels underneath Disney World. This one has definitely become more well known recently, but it is still a pretty cool kept secret. In order for the cast and crew to get from point A to point B without walking through the park and risk being seen acting out their characters or having their characters be seen in a world that they don't exist in, well obviously these tunnels are closed off to the public, but apparently it's like a whole other world down there. The tunnels even have their own barbershops that specializes in Disney approved hairstyles. I don't know if that's real, but I want to go find out.
Now at number 6 is the Haunted Mansion Part 1. So I actually rode this ride multiple times when I went to Disneyland Paris because it was my favorite ride there. I was clearly into some pretty spooky as a child. No wonder. I was made for this channel, clearly. Now, I don't know if this one is technically a curse, but I wouldn't be surprised if it could easily lead to one, or multiple. Apparently, some people love that ride so much they want to stay there forever, and I mean even after they die forever. Yeah, it's apparently pretty common for some people to want their ashes scattered there, and it's become such an issue that the park literally hired people to keep an eye out for it. If there's one thing that's almost sure to cause a curse, it has to be human remains being scattered somewhere that literally has the word haunted in the title. Hello. Coming in at number 5 is Walt Disney's Riverfront Square. Okay, so this project was a huge deal because it was meant to be Disney's second park after the one in California. Now if you weren't aware, Walt Disney grew up in Missouri, so in 1963 he met up with St. Louis's mayor to talk about the plans. It was meant to be a theme park right by the riverfront area, which worked out since the area was already undergoing renovations due to a city celebration. The park would have taken up 2 blocks and its entrance would have been very similar to Disneyland's Main Street one. everyone. Attractions like the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Western Riverboat ride were all meant to be at this park. Unfortunately, the plans for the park completely fell through in 1965 due to financial and ownership issues. Walt then turned all his focus to the Walt Disney World in Florida, and I mean, it's a good thing he did too. That one's vibing. And number 4 is Roger Rabbit's Hollywood. I may get a lot of slack for this in the comments, but am I the only one that wasn't really into the whole Roger Rabbit universe? Like, I know it's a cult classic and whatnot, but I just wasn't interested. I didn't care. So Disney wanted to extend Sunset Boulevard and build Roger Rabbit's Hollywood because the movie had just come out. The project was going to have a red car trolley going up and down the street, dropping off people at a Maroon Studios replica. Now that bit would have been located where Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith is today. The area would have had 3 attractions: Baby Herman's Runaway Baby Buggy, Toontown Trolley, and of course Benny the Cab, but the cab later became Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. Spielberg's company Amblin and Disney were both in a bit of a legal dispute over using the character in film, and by 1992 all future attractions were put on hold. But I mean, we still got the red trolley in Disney's California Adventure, so I mean, you know, you win some, you lose some. Filling our number 3 slot is Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers. So if you're unaware, Disney planned on their 1990 film Dick Tracy to be a massive hit. Plot twist, it absolutely wasn't. But before its release, the company had huge hopes for the franchise and Imagineers were planning out the ride Crime Stoppers. It was meant to emulate a high-speed chase throughout Chicago with Tommy guns and the whole works. A press release was even put out announcing the oh-so-revolutionary ride, and then when the film tanked, they just tried to pretend like the ride was never even a thing, just sweeping it under the rug and pretending it just didn't exist. At least the Tommy guns didn't go to waste, though. They ended up paving the way for the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin shooting adventure, so yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Number 2, you can hear a secret conversation on Main Street. Inside the hat shop on Main Street, you can find an antique telephone. If you pick up this phone, instead of being able to make your own call, you'll be able to eavesdrop on a mother and a daughter's phone call in which they're arguing about the price of groceries. This one is not a huge underground secret, but it's definitely a cute little Easter egg that make your visits to the parks that much more fun and immersive.
And finally, at number 1, we have the ghost of Walt Disney. Now, prior to him passing away, whenever he visited the parks, the light in the second-story window of the Main Street Fire Hall would be lit up to tell staff members to be on their best behavior. A boss is here. But after he died, the light naturally was off all the time, until one day it mysteriously lit up again. The worker who was in the room switched it back off, only for it to be turned on again when she turned her back towards it. Now the staff leave the light on all the time to remind the employees and guests that Walt is still at the park and he's watching. Now, I'm sure for the guests this seems like a sweet gesture, but to the staff it's probably a bit daunting and haunting. Now, starting us off at number 10 is the search for Mickey Mouse. Now, this project was a pretty big deal since it was meant to celebrate Mickey Mouse's 75th anniversary, so I thought it was only fitting that I started with this one. So the plot was meant to follow all the original characters like Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and Basil of Baker Street. I don't know why Daisy Duck got cut from the squad, but evidently she did. That's a bit savage. Now, the movie would follow the group on their quest for finding Mickey, and while on the adventure they were going to run into a bunch of different Disney characters like Peter Pan, Aladdin, Alice, etc. Now, how boss would this film have been? Cameos from everyone. But apparently the reason the project got cancelled was due to lack of ideas. The writers were finding it really hard to think of an interesting story that made sense whilst integrating all the character cameos. Honestly, good plot or not, I feel like people would have eaten up a movie with that many cameos and they should have just made it anyway. Coming in at number 9 is Port Disney. So this one was a huge deal. It was meant to be 443 acres and have a whole marine themed amusement park, a cruise ship port, a marina, hotels, and a whole retail and entertainment district. It's like a whole little city almost. Disney Sea was a theme park that was going to be built there, and it featured every aquatic themed ride you could possibly think of. But considering how big the project was, there was a lot of local opposition and people didn't want the added traffic from tourists, and they also didn't think Disney deserved public subsidies for the project considering they were a very successful private corporation. Then the California Coastal Commission told Disney that, by the way, your plans are great and all, but a huge bulk bulk of the project is not permitted under the Coastal Act, so what are you literally even doing? The mayor of Long Beach also ended up announcing that he didn't think the project made sense for the city or for Disney. Yikes. The project was shelved in 1991 and replaced by the planned Westcott Park that also eventually got abandoned too.
Magic Kingdom's main street doesn't actually have the American flags lining in it. Okay, so obviously it looks like it's lined with American flags, but Disney actually had to make some slight adjustments. They did this to get around a law that says that every flag has to be raised, lowered, and raised at half-mast appropriately. In order to keep the flags flying high for the visitors, all the time, Disney made sure to remove a star here and a stripe there, making the flags technically not American.
Making our way down the list at number 7, we have the Food Rocks. Food Rocks was opened in 1994 and featured a musical show with animatronic figures. Kind of like the Chuck E. Cheese band, but more classy in a way and less scary.
I don't think it can be classy in any way.
Well, I don't know, but the Chuck E. Cheese band is terrifying with their
really are.
evil eyes. The Food Rocks was an animatronic show in the Land Pavilion at Epcot. It opened in 1994 and was all about the importance of eating healthy. The animatronics were different types of food, but with human features. They then would make funny parodies of songs like "Every Breath You Take" was "Every Bite You Take."
That's a great song, first of all. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, the vaudeville style show was basically meant to teach kids about the 4 food groups, but was eventually shut down in 2004. But according to Modern Mouse Radio, the whole stage was left intact and is just hidden behind the walls. Even the animatronic figures are said to be resting behind the walls, so while you're queuing up for that flight simulator ride, just remember those singing food items are right there.
Ew. Can you imagine if they just started singing all of a sudden? They're like, "Every bite you take."
Dude, I'd get so scared. I'm like, where's this coming
what
from?
is this coming from?
Are you hearing that? Like, where is that?
It's so creepy.
Now at number 6 is the Persian Resort. So this project was essentially meant to be a themed hotel built for Disney World, Florida. The hotel was going to have this 24-foot dome on the main building, which is very typical of like Persian architecture. I would have loved it. It was going to be located north of the Contemporary Resort and east of the Magic Kingdom, and you could have gotten there via monorail. That's pretty damn cool. Apparently the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, even offered to pay for the whole thing until of course the whole 1973 oil crisis happened. The project was cancelled along with the planned Venetian resort and Asian resort. The Shah still offered to finance the project until the Iranian Revolution, after which the project just got the axe for good.
In at number 5, cats roam the ground of Disneyland at night, apparently while doing a walkthrough of Sleeping Beauty's castle. Walt Disney and the Imagineers discovered it was filled with flea-ridden feral cats. They initially were going to adopt them out to cast members, but instead decided to keep them around to help, keep out the mice. Well, except for Mickey and Minnie, of course, because that would be devastating.
At number 4 is My Peoples. The concept of this movie is so cute. I'm actually quite sad it never got made, despite only learning about its existence like half an hour ago. Sometimes you just don't know what you're missing, until it's just right there in front of you. But set in Texas during the 40s, this movie would follow 2 families, the McGees and the Harpers, and as you can guess, the 2 did not get along.
It's kind of a bit like Romeo and Juliet, since the family's children, Elgin and Rose, fall in love, while the families try to keep them apart. So cute. But then the movie does get a bit weird and Elgin starts to create dolls out of household objects. But this is Disney, so the dolls end up coming to life after an accident occurs involving a magic potion.
The living dolls end up helping the families come together, and I genuinely think it would have been such a hit. The movie was scrapped in favor of Chicken Little, and as cute as that movie was when I watched it, I would have loved the Peoples as well, maybe even more. You know what I mean?
Same, it's a good idea. Maybe they thought it was too similar to Romeo and Juliet, but then again, those creepy doll things.
Yeah, literally. Household dolls. I love it. Filling at number 3 slot is Newt. This one is actually so cute and I feel like it would have done really well, so it's annoying it never got made. So Newt's plot revolved around the last male and female blue-footed newts in the world. The world, as well as science and man, forces the 2 together so they don't die out altogether. Now initially the newts hate each other, but then they eventually come together in the end because they have to, since it's a Disney movie. And I know what you're thinking, this sounds very similar to the plot for Rio, and you are 100% correct. But then again, wasn't Ants very similar to A Bug's Life? It's not like they haven't done it before. Either way, the creator of Up took the project and shelved it for his own idea, which is what ended up being Inside Inside Out. And that movie made me cry, so I honestly don't even mind. That was a very good movie. But not to fret, because the abandoned project still makes its way into Disney films via Easter eggs. For example, in Toy Story there's a sign in Andy's room that says Newt Crossing. Cute. Now at number 2 is the Seance book. The book in question is located in the Haunted Mansion. Why am I not surprised that the Haunted Mansion has the most curses and rumors surrounding it? Legend has it though that this Seance book used to belong to actual witches way back in the 1300s. Staff members reported having a lot of issues with the book, including the table it was on being flipped over or the book going missing entirely. They eventually had to replace the book with, I don't know, I guess a prop seance book that isn't cursed with centuries of witchcraft, and as far as I know, the swap fixed all the problems they were having, so I mean, Bob's your uncle.
And finally, in our number 1 spot is River Country Park. River Country Park opened in 1976 and was the first water park at Walt Disney World. The park was designed to look like a swimming hole and had fake mountains with water slides. But a lot of tragedy occurred at this park, which contributed to being shut down. In 1980, a boy was killed at the park after getting a bacterial infection from one of the pool's water. The bacteria attacked his brain and nervous system, which then killed him.
I was smiling all throughout she was talking about that death. I wasn't smiling at the death, I was just smiling at something Lindsay did beforehand. I was some sadistic fool. Either way, I digress. Then, just 2 years later, another boy passed away at the park. Sadly, he drowned after coming off of one of the water slides. Like, surely after the first death, they would have improved things, you know, installed more safety measures, at least something.
I guess not, because then in 1989, another boy drowned there. What's creepy is that their advertisements read, "Bring a swimsuit and a smile. You're likely to wear both out at River Country." More like, bring a swimsuit and a death wish. Like, seriously, it's tragic what happened there.
Oh god. The park then closed its doors in November of 2001, but most of it is still there. In fact, some say that the park is now haunted. People have speculated that the land is permanently cursed with bad luck, which is what makes it very attractive to urban explorers who go there.
We should go there for a future video.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So starting us off, in at number 10, there may be real skeletons in the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction at Disneyland. This is one of my favorite rides, and next time I ride this, I'm gonna jump off the boat into the water and I'm gonna go looking for this. Apparently when they were deciding to build the ride, the Imagineers decided that the prop skeletons, well, they didn't look real enough. So they hit up the UCLA Medical Center for some actual skeletons to be featured. I mean, this just took a whole new level. Throughout the years, most of these have been replaced with replicas and given a proper burial, but apparently there are still some real bones, if not entire skeletons, guarding the treasures.
Coming in at number 9 is the Bellhop ghost. Now apparently the Tower of Terror is a bit more terrifying than expected. A long time ago it said that one of the employees acting as a bellhop suddenly dropped dead. Like, no explanation, no provocation, nothing, he just died. Since his death there have been a lot of sightings of a ghostly figure who many believe is that bellhop. Thankfully he's never hurt anyone, but he does like stopping the ride making loud noises to freak out the other staff members. I love how he's like, no, the guests should have a fun time, but I want to screw with the other employees. At number 8 we have Mr. One Away. Turns out there are a lot more haunted rides at Disney than you would really expect from the happiest place on earth. More like happiest place in the afterlife. That was lame, you guys. Just, you can attack me in the comments for that, I'll accept that. Apparently, even Space Mountain has a resident spirit haunting the ride. Mr. One Way is described as being a large man with red hair and a red face, and he will often sit beside people who are riding solo. A lot of people don't realize that he's a ghost until he mysteriously just vanishes midway through the ride. But there is one way to tell if you are a bit sus about him while waiting in the line. If you see a large red-faced, red-haired man while waiting to get on the ride, try talking to him about all the new changes at the park, seeing as he's dead, he doesn't have any idea about anything that's happened since the 70s. Bring up a phone. Filling our number 7 slot is Recess, the first day of school. So Disney hasn't just abandoned a bunch of attractions, it's also shelved a lot of movies. And although I didn't have Disney growing up, for the 1 year I did have it, I just overdosed on Recess. The show was just so good, it was a great time, always good vibes. And this movie was meant to be a prequel to the show to kind of show how the whole series even came to be. You'd think they would have covered the origin story in one of the 4 Recess movies, movies already, but evidently they did not.
So I'm assuming that the movie would have shown how the characters met and became friends or something like that. But we will never know, since Disney released 0 teasers or information about the movie before they abandoned the project altogether. Which is a tease if you ask me. Like, you can't just announce a Recess movie and then not go through with it. Either the idea was embarrassingly terrible, or they didn't think the movie was going to be a big success. Either way, I wish they shared just a tiny bit of information on this project.
Literally, I feel like it would have done well.
I think
Anything
so.
Recess does well.
In our 6th spot, we have the Beastly Kingdom. The original plans for the animal kingdom was supposed to incorporate 3 categories of animals: real, extinct, and imaginary. So the Beastly Kingdom was supposed to be a section of the Animal Kingdom Park that focused on mythological animals. They had plans to have a quest of the Unicorn Hedge Maze, a boat ride based on Fantasia, and even a massive castle home to a fire-breathing dragon. Like, that sounds awesome. And that castle's dragon was planned to be the largest animatronic creature in the whole park. Now, there is no conclusive reason as to why this idea was abandoned, but every year there is new hope that Disney will follow through with this idea.
Coming in at number 5 is Mort. I feel like out of everything on this list, this one hurt me the most. So this movie would have been based on the 4th Discworld book Mort by Terry Pratchett. The plot focuses on the character of Mort, who goes on to become Death's apprentice, which isn't hard to gather if you know what the title is. Mort equals dead, it's only fitting. Now on the first mission, Mort ends up messing with everything, including the fabric of time, when he stops the death of a specific princess. The little concept art I've seen of the movie just looks morbid and dark in the perfect way. You know, like, it's not too depressing that I can't watch it, it's just nice and gothic. It's not super clear why the project got shelved, but an artist on the movie called Sue Nicholas shared it was something to do with the rights of the novel. Apparently Disney just couldn't obtain the rights to do the movie, so they obviously didn't. At number 4 is the People Mover. So this ride was essentially a transport attraction that opened up at Tomorrowland at Disneyland, California back in 1967. Parkgoers would board these small trains that toured around Tomorrowland from above, and as fun as safe as that ride sounds, it really wasn't. A month into the ride being in operation, a 16-year-old guy tripped and fell onto the track, and the oncoming trains crushed him and dragged his body for a few hundred feet before actually stopping. Can you imagine having a death only 1 month into the ride opening? That is not a good track record. And no, that is not the only death the ride caused.
Was that a pun intended?
Yes.
This is not a good track. That was clever. I like that. But seriously, that is terrifying. But that wasn't the reason why the ride was closed. The ride was closed in August of 1995 because the Disney team thought that it was too old school. As a result, it was replaced by the Rocket Rods 3 years later, which then didn't last too long as well. But not to fear, a lot of the pieces of the train from the original ride are still used in other parts around the resort. And the track is still in Tomorrowland, just unused. In 2010, Disney announced that the ride was coming back. But it's been 10 years and nothing has happened, so let's just hope that they get that whole death by ride thing figured out.
Yeah.
We don't need any more of those.
10 years, I don't think the comeback's happening.
No, it's definitely not.
Filling at number 3 slot is death. This one's not so much a curse, but it does deal with death. Apparently no one can die at Disney parks, not legally anyways. But lots of people have unfortunately had tragic accidents and health issues at the parks. They're always removed from the premises before being declared dead, so technically they didn't die in the parks. Kind of like in Roller Coaster Tycoon when you have your roller coaster hanging over the edge of the neighboring park, so all the guests are just thrown off the ride and die in the other park. This really makes me wonder how many people have actually died at Disney and how many spirits are just wandering the streets and enjoying the rides for the rest of eternity.
In our second spot, we have the Museum of the Weird. The Museum of the Weird was going to be the ultimate Inception. It was going to be an attraction inside of an attraction. So it was going to be at the beginning of the Haunted Mansion attraction. It was going to include odd stuff like a chair that stood up and talked, along with other weird things collected from around the world. This concept was created by Walt Disney himself after thinking of all the unusual concepts one of his Imagineers came up with. He then figured he would combine them all in the Museum of Weird. But sadly, the plan was cancelled after the Haunted Mansion attraction was turned into a ride-through attraction. However, some of the designs are currently featured at at this attraction, including the wallpaper used on the walls in the Corridor of Doors scene.
And finally, in at number 1, there's an abandoned water park inside Disney World. Disney World's first water park ran for about 25 years until it closed down in 2001. For some reason, it was never torn down, and it remains there today. It's on an island in the middle of Bay Lake in the park, and although it obviously isn't accessible to the public, there are photos of it that shows moss and vines and other plant life taking over. I mean, a mysterious closure and Disney not wanting to disturb the remains of what was there, well, that definitely has some major curse vibes to me.
Starting us off at number 10 is the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I loved the whole movie franchise. It's one of my favorite movie series of all time. And hello, Johnny Depp, you can't hate him. Now, this ride is one of Disney's most popular ones, and they have so many cool props in it. Apparently, the treasure chest is the same one used in the first movie, not just a prop for the ride. But the treasure chest isn't the only quote-unquote real prop. When the Imagineers were building and decorating the whole thing, apparently they felt that the fake skeletons they used in some scenes didn't look real enough. So naturally, they did what anybody would do and went to their friendly neighborhood mortician for some real human bones. While a lot of these real bones have been replaced by prop bones, apparently there's still some real human remains still hanging around the pirates. And seriously, that is the stuff that curses are made of. They don't call it the curse of the Black Pearl for nothing. But just...
In our 9th spot, we have the Nightmare Before Christmas. I am disappointed that this project never got finished because I'm a huge fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas and Jack Skellington. It's just a classic movie. Is it a movie to watch during Halloween? Is it a movie to watch during Christmas? The answer is, it's a movie to watch during both of my favorite holidays. Like, that's amazing. But anyways, The Nightmare Before Christmas ride was going to be built beside the evil It's a Small World ride at Disneyland. Seriously, that ride is cursed or something. It was going to have guests in a flying coffin help Jack save Christmas. And at the end of the ride, it was going to show Jack and Sally hugging in the snow. How cute. But for some reason, the project was scrapped. However, every year from Halloween to Christmas, Disneyland redecorates the Haunted Mansion ride to be Nightmare Before Christmas themed. So, in a way, we get our nightmare fix, but not in the way that they originally intended.
At number 8, we have Disney's America. So back in the early 90s, Disney planned on building this theme park near Haymarket, Virginia. It was meant to showcase the history of the US, and it was meant to have thousands of hotel rooms and housing, 9 themed areas, and 2 million square feet just for retail. The areas were meant to be Crossroads USA, Civil War Fort, Native America, President's Square, Family Farm, Enterprise, We the People, Victory Field, and State Fair. The behemoth of a project with a $650 million budget was meant to open in 1998, but that did not happen. Upon its announcement, it had a lot of support from political officials like Governor Douglas Wilder and George Allen, but opposition to the project was a lot louder than expected from Project History America. They believed the theme park would desecrate the ground over which so many men fought and died on. But then again, the park would have honored the country's history, so was it really desecrating it? I don't really know. The American Farmland Trust opposed the project as well, and even nearby towns started changing their opinions. By 1994, Disney announced they would not build the park, and that was the end of that. Filling at number 7 slot is the family. This family cannot seem to have a trip to Disneyland without getting some type of nasty stomach bug. On her blog, the mom gave a thankfully not too detailed account of the past 5 times that she and her family have gone to Disneyland, during 4 of which at least one of them got a really nasty bug, even bringing hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes that didn't seem to protect them enough to make it through a trip. Normally, I might consider this a really bad string of coincidences, but with Disney opening back up during everything that's going on right now, I feel like this blog post could have gone a really different way if they decided to go now, and I'm not sticking around for that. Now, number 6 is Lafitte's Island. So this project was going to be a makeover of the Tom Sawyer Island located in Disneyland, and how they were going to do that was by basing it on the pirate Jean Lafitte. Parkgoers would go into Lafitte's crypt, which would have been in a graveyard right opposite the Haunted Mansion. From there, you would go through a catacomb-themed tunnel network under the river to the island. The tunnels would have things like Lafitte's treasure vault and numerous shipwrecks. The reason for the project being abandoned was never made public, but the project did inspire the actual pirate's lair that did come to fruition.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with MYTHICA. Now, there is little known about MYTHICA. In fact, we don't even know when it was in development. Nonetheless, it was a real concept that was going to be at Disneyland. So apparently MYTHICA was going to be the name of a land with scenery, rides, and dining, all inspired by Greek and Roman mythology. Okay. As someone who loves Greek mythology, like I'm a huge nerd, I just love this idea. Wouldn't it be so cool? Like you could have rides based on the Greek gods. Like you could have a splash water roller coaster ride for Poseidon or a fire mountain ride for Hades. The ideas are endless. You could even have a section dedicated to Hercules. Like, come on Disney, I got the ideas, you got the money, let's make this happen.
At number 4 is It's a Small World. There have been multiple accounts from staff members over the years saying that the characters in the It's a Small World ride come to life at night. And honestly, even though that ride is supposed to be really happy, it has always seemed to be one of the creepiest ones for me. I don't know why. Several employees have sworn that they've seen the animatronic characters blink even after being unplugged, and sometimes they'll even appear in entirely different places than they were the night before. Who knows what those creepy little dolls get up to overnight? I do not want to get trapped in there and find out. You feel me?
Alright, coming in number 3, there are scents being pumped through the park. If you walk down Main Street and smell freshly baked cookies, or walk by Pirates of the Caribbean and smell seawater, you're not going crazy. The parks do this in order to enhance the experience of the visitors and make their trip to Disney even more immersive. Even the hotel lobbies have more of a home scent pumping through them to make the guests, more comfortable.
Now at number 2 is Discovery Island. This 11.5-acre island is located on Walt Disney World's property and was actually open to guests between 1974 to 1999. Walt bought the island in 1965 and it was initially called Treasure Island. Parkgoers went there to look at wildlife because it was essentially a miniature zoo. You could look at animals like flamingos, swans, and more. Fun fact, the island's facilities were the last known home of the dusky seaside sparrow before it went extinct. Things got ugly in 1989 when Peter accused Disney of mistreating vultures that landed on the island. Disney actually even confirmed this by saying some of the birds died while employees tried to capture them. Officials then charged him with 16 counts of animal cruelty, but they were eventually dropped. The island closed in 1999 for undisclosed reasons, and all of its animals got moved to Disney's Animal Kingdom. The island is still there, just sitting there, abandoned with zero signs of development. Funnily enough, a man went to the island in April of this year during the pandemic. He called it a tropical paradise and had no idea it was off limits. He was soon arrested. And finally, at number 1 is the Aristocats 2. Hello! Am I the only one who's truly appalled and very angry that they never made the Aristocats 2? Who doesn't want to watch the sequel of a cat movie? It'd be great. And yes, I know I'm 100% biased. I don't even care. So the movie was gonna focus on Marie, the adorable white pink ribboned kitten from the first one who looks a lot like my own cat, so obviously I'm in love. Now the plot was gonna feature some adventure by having the cats go against a jewel thief on a cruise ship. To make it a bit more interesting, they were gonna have a love interest for Marie on the ship as well, and they would have fallen in love as the ship went from France to Scotland, Spain, and then England. Despite how well the first movie did, Disney was worried they had come up with the plot for the sequel way too quickly, and considering how badly The Fox and the Hound 2 did, they were in no rush for another failure of a sequel. Please release it, it'll be so good.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Western River Expedition. The Western River Expedition was going to be a huge theme park attraction at Magic Kingdom. It was planned to be a Western themed boat ride, narrated by an owl by the name of Hoot Gibson. He would guide you through a bunch of scenes like a bank robbery or one with prairie dogs and buffalo, and of course there was going to be cowboys.
Hoot Gibson, like I'm dying at how cute that name is. Now originally the plan was to have a Pirates of the Caribbean themed ride at Magic Kingdom, but Disney thought that this wouldn't be a huge deal for Floridians since pirates are rife in their urban legends. But when the park finally opened up, everyone was super disappointed and kept asking the same question.
Where are the pirates? As a result, they never went through with building this ride. Instead, they figured out they should give the people what they want and make a ride based on the Pirates of the Caribbean. Plus, they realized that this ride would be several $1 million cheaper to build.
So they were like, screw it, let's save the 60 mil and build this pirate ride.
Next up, number 9, there are no modern bathrooms in Magic Kingdom's Liberty Square. Disney really went above and beyond to keep this authentic to its time period. Back in the colonial times, washrooms weren't used on how we use them today, So of course, Disney had to make sure to keep this continuity by making sure these are no modern washrooms. Yeah, there technically are some in Liberty Tavern and Columbia Harbor House, but these are set so far back in restaurants that they aren't actually in the Liberty Square anymore.
At number 8 we have Pop Century Resorts. The foundation of the resort had two parts to it, the legendary years and the classic years, and those two parts were connected by a bridge called the Generation Gap. Very literal and ironic, I know, but the legendary years would have represented the 1900s all the way to the 40s, and the classic years would have represented the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. The original plan was for the resort to open in 2001, but then due to construction delays it was pushed back another year, and then 9/11 happened, which plummeted tourism to basically nothing. The opening was then postponed again because there was zero demand for hotel rooms. Construction on the classic years side continued until its opening in 2003, but the legendary years side hasn't been touched since 2001. In 2006, Disney announced they would restart construction on the abandoned side, but that never happened. LOL. In 2010, it was announced Disney's Art of Animation Resort would be replacing the legendary side, but the original buildings still stand. As for the classic years side, we don't talk about that no more. Filling our number 7 slot is Gigantic. So I love how Disney takes all these old fairy tales and modernizes them for our time. For example, tales like Snow Queen aren't even recognized anymore despite that being the premise for Frozen. Now Gigantic was an animated movie project of Jack and the Beanstalk, which I'm only now realizing there isn't a Disney movie for. Is there? There isn't. Now the plot was set during the age of exploration in Spain and was gonna revolve around Jack and his friendship with 11-year-old giant Irma. And she would have apparently been such a character. She was described as feisty, fiery, and a lot to control. Unfortunately, no matter how good the idea is, sometimes things just don't work out, and that was the case for Gigantic. Disney and Pixar's president Ed Catmull announced the project was being shelved for now, and I mean there could be a chance it makes a comeback in the future, who knows. The artwork for the film was actually super cute, so I really hope it does come back off the shelf.
Filling in the number 6 spot today, there is an entirely private members club at Disney World, and it has 4 locations, one in Epcot, one in American Adventure, the one in Magic Kingdom is beside the entrance to Adventureland, and the one in Hollywood Studios is on the 2nd floor of the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant, and the 4th is being built at Animal Kingdom. All 4 of these have a theme that go along with Walt Disney's life, but unless you're one of the, lucky few, you probably won't have a chance to see inside, but you can be sure that they are swanky, fun, and impeccably decorated.
Coming in at number 5 is the Haunted Mansion Part 2. This one sounds terrifying, if not downright depressing. The Haunted Mansion apparently houses a ghost nicknamed the Crying Child, and there's nothing creepier than a ghost child in my opinion, especially if it's crying. I just hate ghost little children. Sorry, I got really aggressive there. This one is actually a result of his mom doing what we just talked about, which is spreading ashes of somebody who has passed away. The Crying Child's mom apparently spread his ashes at the Haunted Mansion, and now he's left standing at the end of the ride crying, asking where his mommy is for all of eternity. I'm not sure if his mom thought she was doing him a favor by spreading his ashes at the Haunted Mansion, but something tells me he's not too happy about it.
Next up, number 4, the basketball court inside the Matterhorn. Okay, so this one isn't really a full court, but more of a hop, backboard, and floor marking, but still, you can play basketball inside of the Matterhorn at Disneyland. I don't exactly know why this was put there, especially since every detail of Disney seems to have a unique function, but oh well, it seems like it would be a fun place for Cinderella and Lilo to have a little one-on-one during this break.
Coming in at number 3, we have Cranium Command. The Wonder of the Life Pavilion had a short-lived life. It opened in October of 1989 and closed in 2007. The pavilion was designed to be educational yet fun. It focused all about the human body. Now, one of the rides at this attraction was called Cranium Command. For this ride, guests were sent on a mission into the human brain of a 12-year-old boy. Yeah, not creepy at all. You were then called a Cranium Commando, and alongside Buzzy, a tiny soldier, you would help complete this mission. Not gonna lie, I've seen footage from this ride and it looks really creepy. So you're inside a theater that is designed to look like you're inside this boy's head. So you're inside his head, looking out of his eyes, seeing what he is seeing. Then it's kind of like a simulator ride where you just watch the story unfold while your chair vibrates and moves to whatever is happening. But unfortunately, this ride was abandoned after having one of their sponsors back out.
Now number 2 is the Enchanted Snow Palace. So this wintry project was scheduled to be a dark ride at Fantasyland within Disneyland. A dark ride is one of those rides where you board those indoor ghost trains that take you throughout the ride. Now Mark Davis designed the project as a boat ride going along on a river of melting ice. You would go past scenes of Arctic wildlife, all while being under the northern lights, which has always been a dream of mine. When I was little, I wanted my honeymoon to be somewhere where I could see the northern lights, and then obviously I grew up, but I still really want to see them. Anyway, the ride would eventually take you into this land filled with snow giants and frost fairies known as the realm of the Snow Queen. The concept art of the ride was insane, but it was eventually scrapped, but it did serve as inspiration for the Frozen Ever After ride at the Norway Pavilion during the World Showcase at Epcot.
And in our number 1 spot, we have Lost in SCARADISE. Love the name of this. So this one was going to be another Disney film. Any guesses as to what sequel of a classic Disney movie was going to be called Lost in SCARADISE? Monsters Inc. That's right, before Monsters University, Disney was working on releasing a film where Mike and Sully visited Boo for her birthday in the human world. But they discovered that the family moved, and so the whole film surrounds them trying to find Boo. Okay, I personally am a really big fan of this film concept. Like, that's such a cute idea. I would have loved this film if it got made.
I honestly watched Monsters Inc. when I was small, but I don't remember any of it.
I love the movie. I love it. Put that thing back where it came from, oh, so help me, so help me. I love it. It's so good. It's such a good movie. It's so good.
That's
Sorry.
so cute. But the idea was cancelled and replaced with Monsters University, also one that I have not seen. Now the reason being was because Disney shut down the studio that was making it, Circle 7. But this company was created originally to create sequels for Disney-owned Pixar movies, but after it was shut down, Pixar went on to create Monsters University.
I still want another Monsters Inc. movie. But I have a feeling that the end of the movie, they find that Boo and her family was just on vacation the whole time and they all lived happily ever after. Pretty sure I just guessed the ending. If not, then you're welcome, Disney. I just gave you a great ending idea.